Hello everyone, Riccardo Mazzini here, and this is vlog. A vlog about From Salerno to Rome, a game idea by my dear friend and great game designer Sergio Schiavi. Yes, another Italian war game, but I think you should know it because it has had a good international distribution. This is a game about the first half of the Italian campaign in World War II, from 1943. That is from Salerno up to the conquest of Rome, mid-1944. A portion of the conflict of World War II, which is known among war games for being one of the most static and boring fronts of the war. But in this game, Sergio has managed to make it so much more fluid, so much more dynamic, and so much more interesting, really interesting. Why? Because in essence, this is a fairly standard war game. This is one of the maps, and there's beautiful maps, as you may see. Sergio is a wonderful cartographer and graphic artist, with counters, with what a surprise, with combat ratio and movement ratio. But the real essence of all these is this portion of the game. Why? Because this game is played in impulses, not just turns. In every impulse, each of the two players will have an amount of activation points, and first there will be a planning phase for every single impulse, and you will spend a bit of activation points to activate some units on the map. And then there is the operations phase. In the operations phase, well, those units activated will move, but there will be so much more supplies, intelligence, special operations that you can buy with those activation points. But just by staying on the conventional movement, fire and maneuver, combat and maneuver, okay, those units, along with some independent, with a certain number of independent units, will be able to move on the map. The great thing is that the initiative player does his impulse, the non-initiative player does his impulse, and after that, those counters, and you're still in the same turn, those counters are put back. Okay, and you can rearrange the formations, and you can activate even one single division by just spending other points, and also the same divisions that you have just activated can be activated again in the same turn. So the front, you can always use your front units as spearheads, but be careful, because those units will be consumed, will have problems, will be damaged. You also have reserves, and this leads us to the other great point of this game, is that in these games, yes, there are Zocs that slow you down, but they don't block you. So you can actually break through here, you might think, but units that are in reserve, units of the opponent that are in reserve, or some particular units, essentially mechanized units, have reaction movement. So you move those units here, haha, you have a breakthrough? No, you don't. Why? Because this, because that, and blocks the way. In doing so, of course, every unit can only react once. It is just a bit like an opportunity move, and so now you have action and reaction. So you have to react to this move. The other great part is that artillery is not fixed on the map. It is placed at the beginning of the impulse. So those artilleries are aggregations of artillery. And so they essentially materialize. They're not around troops, so there is not so much counters, not so many counters on the map, and so they can also react, they can support, or they can bombard on their own, they can do interdiction fire. You see, action and reaction, action and reaction. After that, the impulse ends, then the opponent's impulse, and then another impulse. Only when you have terminated, you used up all your activation points, and also the opponent has done the same, then the turn will end. but there will also be free activations, Kampfgruppen and task forces, a lot of different stuff. Units in reserve, they can react, but if you choose not to use them, to keep them in reserve, they will recover much more quickly. Also, there are many asymmetries, and they are all here in this conflict. The Allied forces are more numerous, much better supplied, but the single German forces are better, have better equipment. They are much more versatile, they're much more flexible, they're much more flexible organization, but they're very fragile. They can counterattack, they have Gegenangriff, that is special counterattack abilities that they can use, but they have to use it sparingly and wisely, because they have so few resources. All of this goes in 4 scenarios, 3 historical, 1 hypothetical, and then 1 campaign scenario. This is just introductory scenario about Ortona, and believe me, there are lots of things to do, and it is very hard for the Allies to get to Pescara, to, as it was historically, to go beyond Ortona. And so with this impulse and counter-impulse, reaction and counter-reaction, reserve and counter-reserve, you have units moving all around during also the opponent's turn, so there is no downtime. Everything is very dynamic, it's very fluid. And this reminds me a lot of the Japanese master game designers, with which Sergio is in close contact, and will make another interesting, especially Yasushi Nakakuro of Bonsai Games, and will make a game together with Uwe Valentin about the Italian campaign, but this will be more like a Bonsai game, a very light war game, but will be interesting nonetheless. But also of the master Japanese game design, war game designers. Why? Because they start from the classic war game mechanics, and on top of them they then insert some great innovations, some small strokes of genius to make everything different. I've already spoken on my channel about Warsaw 1920, for example, with its supply management. It is the same, and this is a trademark of Sergio's work. We have seen it in Radetzky's March, his game about the Novara campaign of the Italian Risorgimento, but also in Give Us Victories, this great system that combines force ratios, traditional force ratios, and packet of dice for combat resolution. Combat resolution here is totally conventional, but there are lots of bonuses. It reminds me of Mark Simonich's games, the bonus for tanks, for bombardment, for so many other small things. Artillery can support or can bombard independently with its own bombardment table. Also very, very interesting. All of this in a great package, fantastic map, gorgeous looking map. I can't say enough, well enough for this map. This fantastic, great historical research. There are all the units with their divisional emblems. They are here. It is really impressive. Also, Sergio gives you a small booklet with camouflage schemes for aircraft and tanks. Is it useful? No, it isn't. It is totally useless, but it is beautiful. Guys, we're Italian. We love beautiful, useless things, and they're so beautiful that they are no longer useless. Sorry. Yes, I'm very happy to speak about this war game. I'm very proud because this is a war game that is being produced, designed, and tested in Italy, and that is for me absolutely, totally on par with the best Italian, with best international productions. It's a really good game, and I'm happy also that it has a fairly good distribution also outside of Italy. So if you manage to get hold of one of those games, one of those titles, of Sergio's titles, by all means buy them. You won't regret me, believe me, because he's not just a friend for me, he's a really good wargame designer and historical expert. Front Soldier at Rome is, I don't know if it is a good first wargame. Maybe it is a bit great. Maybe some introduction to your friend, but there's lots of weird things, so possibly it requires a bit more attention. For sure, it is a great second war game. You start from, for example, from the Decision Games folio, or the Fire and Movement, Fire and Maneuver. I never remember the name of the series. The small World War II folios by the Decision Games, they are nice. Not all of them, there are some problems, but some of them, most of them are very nice. The system is nice, the system good, and this is the immediate step up, and you will be able absolutely to enjoy it. Absolutely recommended. This is Frost Aerodrome, a very good, accessible game, very easy, very nice, and also with lots of historical content. Not too much time on the table, not too much too long play. Really a good, nice and accessible game. So, as always, thank you for having me here. Goodbye, and as always, don't be scared. It's just war games. Ciao.